This program contains dramatic reenactments and material that may be disturbing to some audience members. Viewer discretion is advised.
Clearing landmines is a dangerous business.
Mine!
But there's more than explosives in these forests. When a team of volunteers working in Cambodia is kidnapped by Khmer Rouge guerrillas, they're in the hands of some of the most fanatical killers in the world.
We are a neutral organization.
Cut off from rescue, driven deep into hostile territory.
Where are you taking him?
Each mile could be their last.
Stop shooting!
But one man has a plan to keep them alive, and his only weapon is his mind. What it takes to survive on I Shouldn't Be Alive. There are over 100 million landmines scattered all over the globe. In Mozambique, as in so many war-torn countries, death is often just a footstep away. Chris Moon is an ex-British Army officer who now travels the world as a volunteer clearing out landmines.
Mine! Controlled explosion ready!
See, the problem with landmines is that once the fighting stops, these things are killing and maiming people for decades afterwards.
While working in an area that's supposed to be safe,
for some strange reason, I felt something was wrong. I turned. And then
he sets off an anti-personnel blast mine. It contains 8 ounces of TNT. Just enough to blow a leg off.
pain, ringing in my ears, burnt, about to die. I was fading in and out of consciousness. All sorts of weird experiences, looking down on your body. I look down, I see this blood, and I start seriously praying, please God, don't let me die.
Chris is critically injured. His right leg is blown apart below the knee, and he's losing blood by the quart. But Chris is a fighter, and it's not the first time that his life has been threatened on the job. It happened before, in the killing fields of Cambodia. Another country, another war zone. And they don't come much worse than Cambodia.
Cambodia then was a country in turmoil. It was on its knees, 20 years of civil war.
Chris is here with a British non-profit group on his first mine-clearing mission. He's been in Cambodia 6 weeks, and every day he learns more about the country's terrible history of genocide, torture, and death. In the capital, Phnom Penh, there is a museum full of the horrors of the recent past. Between 1975 and 79, Cambodia was led by Pol Pot, a brutal communist dictator who wanted to reform the country through agricultural labor. During his regime, nearly a quarter of the population was tortured and killed by his notorious army, the Khmer Rouge. Over 1 million Cambodians were worked to death in what became known as the killing fields.
It is difficult to put a figure on the number of people who were killed directly in the killing fields, tortured and executed.
Men, women, children. It made no difference. This was one of the most violent regimes of the 20th century. Chris and his team are heading 100 miles away from the capital, Phnom Penh, to a remote minefield. Traveling with Chris is his interpreter and right-hand man, Mr. Hoon.
Chris, he a good person to come to help Cambodia.
Chris's driver, Mr. Sok, is following behind in a truck.
We were taking some women and children from the village down to Kravan, the small town. They were selling their rubber. And in my Land Rover, I had about 6 of my blokes.
Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as
We were going down the same road that we'd always been going up and down when we reached a clearing. And I saw some movement in the bushes, and I just felt something was wrong. I began to wonder if my eyes were affecting me. The bushes seemed to be moving slightly. Suddenly, out of the tree line, charged 30 well-camouflaged soldiers.
These are Khmer Rouge fighters who are still active in this area of the country.
Your mind absolutely races, thinking, God, are they just going to shoot us here? It's so utterly confusing. I know nothing about what is going on. The soldiers running around as they're pointing weapons.
The overt hostility of the attack is designed to disorientate the victims, and it seems to be working.
It's all on a knife edge. You can feel the violence, the aggression with which they took us and attacked us was just paralyzing.
Chris is so shocked he sees everything in slow motion.
In these intense moments, it actually feels like 10, 20, 30 minutes.
The Khmer Rouge, famous for their unbridled brutality, seem totally out of control, ready to kill them at any moment.
At this point, it gets really terrifying because I look around and I cannot see a commander anywhere. It doesn't appear that anybody is in charge.
Under stress, the mind instinctively isolates the most immediate source of threat, in this case, the gun. The brain suppresses peripheral vision. The weapon appears hyper-real. Chris identifies the gun as a Chinese copy of a Russian Tokarev pistol. He knows this model doesn't have a safety catch. He also knows if he doesn't take control of the situation quickly, they're all going to die. No! Chris Moon lies seriously wounded by a landmine in Mozambique. It's not the first time he's stared death in the face. 2 years earlier in Cambodia, he was held at gunpoint by Khmer Rouge rebels.
I see that they've got a small group of soldiers holding the women and children by the cleared area. They've got the blokes off the lorry. The rest of my guys are in a line. I'm in a line. I kept thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm responsible for all these people. I have to do something. There's nothing I can do.
Chris's military training kicks into action. Rule number 1, know your enemy.
I'm watching the Khmer Rouge soldiers. I'm trying to notice everything about them. They seem to have reasonable equipment. The weapons are well oiled. That I find scary. You realise that these guys mean business. So I thought, right, I need to come up with a strategy here.
Unarmed and outnumbered, the only strategy left is to try to outthink his enemy.
So the first thing I say is, right, no matter what happens, I'll never assume the role of victim. I do think that if you behave in a certain way, you pre-program others to treat you in a certain way.
At last it's clear who the commander is. That's the good news. The bad news is, he seems to think he's caught some kind of spy. Chris is a good catch. He's got valuable assets. The vehicles. Quickly, Chris tries to gain the upper hand.
So I introduce myself to this commander as politely as I can. I try to shake hands with him.
It's a brazen move. One false step, and they'll kill him.
Why you come here?
To help the Cambodian people. We are demining the area. We are a neutral organization working...
I thought about every gesture, every move, every blink of an eye.
He said that if you try to say more words, you're going to kill us.
And then they tell us to take our clothes off. Whilst this is happening, on each end of the line, there is a Khmer Rouge soldier with a machine gun. And I begin to think, oh God, are they going to crossfire us? What's going on? God, are they just going to shoot us here? The soldiers keep looking at us. We wait for what seems like an eternity. And all the time I'm thinking, please God, do not let our life end here. Then they come forward and they steal my kit.
For the moment, at least, the Khmer Rouge are more interested in taking possessions than taking lives.
They steal everything out of my rucksack, he steals my sunglasses, he steals my money. And then I see them stealing the watch from the man on the end. Quickly put my hands behind my back.
Under the noses of his captors, Chris takes a huge risk and hides his watch. As an ex-soldier, he knows that if you're captured, a watch can be a vital lifeline.
It gives me some measure of reason, of sanity. It's an anchor.
It turns out the soldiers have no use for the women and children. It's Chris and the vehicles they want.
He said you have to go to see his commander today.
I'm now a Khmer Rouge prisoner of war.
Very few people have survived capture by the Khmer Rouge. Everyone in Cambodia knows one of their favorite mottos is, to keep you is no benefit, to destroy you is no loss.
There were local stories that several engineers over the years had been taken by the Khmer Rouge. They'd never been seen or heard of again. I'm haunted by the look on Vern's face because there's no hope in his eyes. He thinks we're going to die.
"4 hours into the ordeal, they come to a river. It marks the boundary between the territory held by the government and that of the Khmer Rouge rebels.
You must cross the river because the base is over there.
Until they cross, the fighters fear government troops could attack them at any moment. That's why they're so nervous. The river is pretty deep. Chris is worried that he won't get the vehicles across. He tries a stalling tactic.
Ask the commander to send one of his men through the river first.
Chris pushes the situation to the limit.
It is too deep for the Land Rover. It won't go across.
The commander starts to lose what little cool he has left.
This is my order, so you have to cross.
The river is too deep for my Land Rover to go across. It will stick in the middle.
Look, so we get up to the Land Rover. Let's go.
I feel good. For the first time that day, I feel good because I'm calling the shots. I'm saying no. I am now in control.
But Chris's good vibes don't last long. The truck driver, Mr. Sock, has overheard the soldiers talking.
They're afraid that the government troops will send troops to rescue us. If we can't get both vehicles across in the next 20 minutes, they're going to shoot us and burn the vehicles.
So what should we do?
Chris has no choice. Get them across the river or die. Chris Moon and his team are in the hands of Khmer Rouge killers. So far, his cunning and military training have kept them alive. But now their survival may depend on his driving skills.
If we can't get both vehicles across, they're going to shoot us and burn the vehicles.
The river is not as deep as he feared, but it's not exactly a Sunday drive in the country either.
Get into the middle of this fast-flowing stream at 2'6" of water, and I have a few anxious moments as I see the water starting to come under the doors.
The relief of crossing the river is short-lived. They are now in Khmer Rouge territory, heading deeper into the forest and further away from any hope of rescue. Chris knows the chances of escape on foot are 0. Even if they manage to make a run for it, the forest is riddled with Khmer Rouge landmines.
I'm made to drive for what seems an eternity. I keep trying to establish a relationship and talk to them, but they won't talk to us. I'm anxious.
And then, as if the situation couldn't get any worse, the weather changes dramatically. Seasonal monsoon winds begin to blow cool, moist air inland from the ocean, where it meets hot air currents, causing it to condense. The result? Bursts of driving rain that turn the forest tracks into rivers of mud and small streams into fast-flowing torrents.
The heavens open and the thunder is so loud. The most heavy monsoon rain I've ever experienced.
As the driving conditions deteriorate, keeping the trucks moving becomes an even bigger problem for Chris.
We're not using roads, we're on this footpath, we go down into a dip, the ground is really wet, we keep on getting stuck. It's a nightmare.
Ironically, Chris and his captor now see eye to eye.
He doesn't like me, and I don't like him, and he knows it.
If Chris can't keep the vehicles on the move, he'll be little more than excess baggage to the Khmer Rouge, and these guys like to travel light.
What terrifies me about getting stuck is that I am then no longer useful to them. I can prove I'm useful by getting the vehicles out of the mud. That's important.
Mr. Hoon,
Yes, sir.
can you ask if his soldiers can go and find wood for us to put under the wheel, okay? Good.
It's a catch-22 situation. If he keeps the vehicles moving, he's keeping them alive. But when they're back on the road, they're most likely driving to the place of their execution. The forest is vast. Chris is losing track of where they are and can only guess where they are going.
I know by now that we must be deep into their territory. This is their jungle.
Every time they stop, Chris fears it's the end. The commander is now playing his own mind games.
Okay.
What's going on?
You have to follow the commander.
Ask him why. Where are we going?
Not talk too much.
And then, another group of soldiers appears from the bushes.
The man comes towards us. He's got a hard face. And he's got this strange little brown trilby hat on his head. That tells me he's an important man.
Is this the commander who will decide if they live or die? Chris keeps up his charm offensive. And although the new commander's actions are courteous, his words are chilling.
And then he turns to Hearn and he says, "Don't worry, I don't have the authority to shoot you today."
Let's go with us to see my commander. Ma.
He seems to be quite genuine, but I have no doubt at all that if he is told to shoot us, he will. That's his job.
Their first day as prisoners of the Khmer Rouge is almost over. Before it gets dark, they stop alongside a stream.
You asked the commander what his plan is. Why have we stopped?
Tonight we sleep here.
I can see from the look in Hearn's eye that he believes that this is going to be his last night alive.
Chris Moon lies wounded from a landmine, but this isn't the first time his will to survive has been put to the test. To their amazement, Chris, his interpreter, and driver have survived a night as prisoners of the Khmer Rouge. But with daylight, the psychological warfare starts up again. Chris asks his captors for permission to wash. At the riverbank, he suddenly sees a chance to escape.
I look into the cloudy water, and I notice that the stream bed is all rocks.
Unlike the paths in the forest, the rocky riverbed can't be mined, so it could be an escape route. Chris thinks he can run it.
I just know that if I do a runner, they won't catch me. My hobby is running. Over a long distance, I'll be faster than them. And they won't be expecting it. They just won't expect it. I have now a dark moment, because I think if I do a runner, then life would be over for my colleagues.
The battle is fought out in conflicting areas of Chris's brain. His animal instinct tells him to run, while his rational self tells him to be a good guy and think of his driver and interpreter.
You, in these situations, are forced to confront a side of yourself that perhaps you might not have been introduced to.
Chris's conscience wins out.
I think that Chris Moon is a brave man in my heart.
They keep going until, at last, they reach a village. It's eerily quiet. It looks like it's the base camp of the Khmer Rouge regional commander. It's an area infamous for a number of massacres. The women and children have seen many other prisoners arrive, and they know this group is not likely to leave.
No one looks at me. The women won't look in my eye. They all look away. They look down. No one will make eye contact. The children don't laugh. Deep down inside, I begin to think maybe there is no hope. And that's when I have to banish the demons. I stop thinking about just what the worst case scenario might be.
But Chris doesn't have to use his imagination. Reality sets in soon enough.
What? He said they will bring you to the house.
Where are you taking him?
It's a well-known Khmer Rouge tactic. First, they separate you. Then, they kill you.
They've separated me from her. I begin to wonder what's going to happen.
He doesn't speak the language, so now when he confronts the commander, he can't even try to talk his way out of danger. For the first time, Chris feels truly defenseless.
If I start to think about my fear, it's opening the floodgates. So all of the time, it is about controlling the way that you think.
Keeping prisoners isolated is a way to break down their resistance. This is just the kind of treatment that Chris anticipated when he hid his watch.
What happens when you're made to wait? You completely lose concept of time. Minutes seem like hours, and then very, very carefully you look at your watch and you find that you've been there 2 minutes. I control my fear and worry by focusing entirely on what I need to do when I meet this commander to communicate with him.
Chris finally comes face to face with the regional commander, the man who may be about to order his and the others' execution.
Speak Thailand.
No.
I start to think of all the horrible stories that I've been told about what the Khmer Rouge did to people. In a strange sort of way, maybe I'm torturing myself. They don't need to.
I don't understand what you're saying. Min. Yes.
All the time, I'm trying to explain who I am and why I'm there, and that we're neutral and that we've had permission to work. He's got a sparkle in his eye. There's an element of some humanity there, which I find immensely cheering.
Your name, Nam.
Clever.
Clever.
Yeah.
Then, the soldiers bring in Mr. Hoon.
Look, Chris Moon, got you moon off. He said that you have a good heart. Don't worry, he tried to help you.
If this is a trick to make Chris feel better, it's a good one, but he stays on his guard.
This evening, you should have dinner with him.
The invitation to dinner unnerves Chris even more. It could be a death sentence. It is a very surreal meal.
I live in Pol Pot regime. When the Khmer Rouge officer provides good food to us, it means that we would be killed.
It's a bizarre experience. Although things were very polite, we didn't know what to expect.
In my mind, I thought that we would be killed.
After the meal, they are told to sleep. Fat chance. Every time Chris closes his eyes, he sees images of Khmer Rouge brutality. He knows that at any moment they could be dragged out, tortured, and shot.
It doesn't seem likely that they're going to keep us for a long time. That's just not the way they think. We're either to be executed or released.
He has no idea if they're going to make it through the night. Deep in the heart of the Cambodian forest, Chris Moon and his colleagues have survived a second night as prisoners of the Khmer Rouge. So far, Chris's strategy for survival has kept them alive. And in an effort to continue his cordial relationship with his captors, Chris decides to try a little flattery.
Mr. Hoon, please tell Mr. Clever that I respect the Khmer Rouge. They brought peace to Cambodia. Defeated the Vietnamese. And we look forward to leaving and telling everybody how good the Khmer Rouge are.
Remarkably, it seems to be working. Maybe, just maybe, Mr. Clever is going to release them.
What do you think about Mr. Clever?
I think Mr. Clever is a nice man, but the other Khmer Rouge, they may kill us.
Way in the distance, I think I can hear something. And then I see a tiny dot of a helicopter.
The 3-day absence of Chris and his colleagues has triggered a search effort. What Chris hears in the distance is a United Nations helicopter scanning the forest for Chris and his team. Chris knows that UN search helicopters are unarmed and pose no direct threat to his captors. But the Khmer Rouge think it's a spotter helicopter. They believe a full-scale air attack could be close behind.
He's coming looking for us. Tell the commander it's not armed. There is no threat. There's no threat.
Don't shoot! No! Stop shooting!
He said if you don't tell them the truth, they will kill you.
It is the truth. No!
Mr. Clever now sees his prisoners as a dangerous liability. He needs to get rid of them fast. To Chris's astonishment, they are told they are free to leave and ordered to start driving out of Khmer Rouge territory. But there's a catch. They've only got 24 hours.
We start driving and we're free. We're going back. And then, to my complete horror,
it's their old enemy, the commander who first captured them. He's not exactly overjoyed to see they're still alive, and he knows nothing about their 24-hour pass.
Tell the commander. His commander has given us safe passage through this area.
Look, maybe your guy, look.
Give him the car key. If I give him the car keys, how are we going to get home?
You should get in the truck. Get in the truck.
In exchange for the keys to the Land Rover, the commander agrees to let them ride out of the forest on the Khmer Rouge truck. Soon, it starts to get dark. Chris and his companions are fearful of spending another night in Khmer Rouge territory, especially with soldiers who don't seem likely to honor their freedom pass.
We've done everything. We've come so far. We've got through so many difficult situations.
Let's go.
And then the truck gets stuck. He revs and revs the truck. There's no exhaust on it. It's really loud. I look at the truck and I just know there's no way they're going to get it out.
The situation is desperate. They've used up any chances the Khmer Rouge were ever going to give them, and the ride on the truck was their last hope of getting out in time. Chris Moon and his colleagues have got until sunrise to find their way out of guerrilla territory. But with their truck stuck in the mud, they've got to get out on foot. The young soldiers are tired and want to camp where they are for the night. But Chris needs a guide to lead them out of the forest, and time is not on their side.
What's this place?
This is a ghost place. There's many people die here.
Hoon's chance remark gives Chris an idea. He decides to scare the boy soldiers into wanting to leave.
Okay, bring them over.
The Khmer Rouge soldier, they illiterate. So their belief of the ghost. Chris Moon, he said that, oh, this area is a lot of ghosts. If we stay here, maybe the ghosts kill us.
Tell them we have to leave this place very quickly.
Tell them
this is a ghost village.
There are
many ghosts here. I have seen them. They will be very angry if we stay.
The terrified young soldiers agree to guide them out to the edge of their territory. It is now their third night in the Khmer Rouge region, and Chris is determined it will be the last.
We're walking for our lives. We have to be out of there by daybreak.
They slog through forest, rivers, even minefields.
I make everyone put their hands on their shoulders. In the darkness, in this place where there are no rules, where I'm just so angry with them for what they've done. I have to confront the fact that what I hated in Khmer Rouge might also be in me too. A very wicked thought. Maybe I should kill the boy soldier. I've even got my hand on his neck. I can snap his neck like a pigeon. And then I've got the weapon to get the other one when we emerge out into the night. In the end, of course, reason wins through.
At the edge of the forest, the boy soldiers return to their village, leaving Chris and his team to make the final stretch of the journey to freedom alone.
We walk almost the whole night, from 7 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm very, very tired. Sometimes I could not walk properly. But Chris, he's still strong.
After 10 hours of trekking through treacherous forest without food and with very little water, they make it to the village where they started out. The villagers, who they last saw at the ambush, can't believe that they are still alive.
I think it's the most moving moment of my life. This is a place where the children are laughing and the children are playing. They're just so pleased that a bad thing hasn't happened. And at this point I get a very big lump in my throat, and I must confess I shed a tear, which I rapidly wiped away in a sensible and British fashion.
The chances of surviving capture by the Khmer Rouge were almost zero. But Chris Moon and his companions beat the odds. Having survived being kidnapped in Cambodia and 2 years of clearing landmines in the world's most dangerous hotspots, Chris's luck runs out, and his leg is blown off by an undetected mine.
Get onto US aid! Try to get the copter to come in and do a casevac!
As blood gushes out of Chris's wound, signals racing down his nerves, combined with a flood of adrenaline, cause the blood vessels in his leg to shut down in an attempt to decrease blood loss. But after an hour, the continued loss of blood results in a dangerous fall of his blood pressure, causing him to go in and out of consciousness.
I can remember thinking, I am going to be very, very lucky to live. People talk a lot about the survival mechanism, and that your survival mechanism kicks in. Well, that wasn't the way it was. When the pain starts to hit you, I think it reaches a stage where it is so bad that you actually want to die. You would rather give up and pretend it wasn't happening and just turn over and just fade out. Dying is definitely, in those circumstances, the attractive option. It's easier to die. I thought of all the reasons I had to live. To see my family again, to see my friends, to see my niece grow up. Once I'd made that decision to live, I knew then that I would survive.
When Chris reaches hospital, his red blood cell count is so low, by rights, he should be dead. His right leg is lost below the knee, and his right lower arm has to be amputated. But he makes a promise to himself to recover. Within a year, he's back running marathons. Soon he adds the Marathon des Sables to his list, a race that is 7 grueling marathons in 7 days in the North African desert.
What happens most of the time is that we stop here, at this point at which it's uncomfortable, at which it all hurts a bit too much. But the reality is that we have the capacity to go beyond that point if we believe we can. If you fall over, keep on getting up.